Most English Pokemon TCG sets are made by combining two Japanese sets into one. Take Destined Rivals for example. It merges Heatwave Arena, which is themed around iconic trainers like Misty, Cynthia, and Ethan, and combines it with the Glory for Team Rocket, which focuses on the Team Rocket members. Some sets are more region specific, like Pokemon 151, which only contains Pokemon from the Kanto region, and Black Bull and White Flare contains Pokemon from the Unova region. However, there are sets that are themed around a story, which is why in this video, inspired by this comment, we're gonna look back at the XY era of the TCG to look at cards that tell a story through their cards. We're gonna start with sets that have basic storytelling and work our way up to sets with a larger narrative. In Pokemon Furious Fist, this set is all about Pokemon throwing hands, or tongue. The Pokemon are battling each other on different stages. In the Mountain Ring, you can see a McMortar, Electivire, and Slacking all brawling. And if you look at the Poliwrath card, it's standing in the center of the Mountain Ring. There's a fighting stadium, and there's even a battle reporter that's gonna cover the action. Pokemon like Hitmonchan and Mienshao are in the ring. The crowd's favorite, Machamp, slams down into the ring, and there's even a ring girl. There's also an in-city battle competition, and you can see that there's a matchup or a bracket system on the wall in Machop and Makuhita's cards. One of the more exciting battles is between Golurk versus Beartic, and even the Forces of Nature trio, Tornadus, Thundurus, and Landorus want to get in on the action. These clash are worth spectating, and Plusle and Minun are cheering from the sidelines. Not every Pokemon is thrilled to be there though. Scrafty either looks uninterested, or maybe it's just lost in the alley. The action doesn't stop in the city, even the beach becomes an arena, while matches like Hariyama vs Flygon and Blaziken vs Dragonite. Now let's move on to Double Crisis. This set is about the battle between the two villain teams of the Hoenn region. Team Aqua, who wants to expand the sea by awakening Kyogre, and Team Magma, who wants to expand the land by awakening Groudon. The card art shows the events of the battle, and even the flavor text reveals how the trainer and Pokemon are feeling as the fight unfolds. Take Team Magma's Zangoose for example. It shows how confident Team Magma is at the start, but then Team Aqua strikes back with their Survivor, turning it into a showdown between true rivals. Meanwhile, Aeron is chewing on scraps of metal, and through the flavor text it is implied that it's eating Team Aqua's ship. We can see Team Aqua pressing their advantage with Muck. It creates a sticky situation for Team Magma, but Camerupt manages to rescue some of the grunts. Not everyone is so lucky though. Some trainers are injured, and Mightyena has to step up to protect them. Still, the battle isn't one-sided. When Team Magma unleashes Aggron, the tide suddenly shifts back in their favor. Since this is a small set, the story doesn't go beyond much after the battle. Now time to cover the Pokemon sets with the most lore in the X and Y era, which are Breakthrough, Breakpoint, and Fates Collide. What makes this set special is that they're structured in a similar way to Magic the Gathering when they used to do block constructed. In Magic the Gathering, each set in a block shares the same overarching theme, but each set would tell a different part of the story. For example, Khonsa Tarkir block told the story of the 5 dragon clans. Then the following set would talk about how Sarkhan went back in time to change the fate of dragons, and then Dragons of Tarkir talks about a time where the Dragon Lords ruled. Yes, this is still a Pokemon video, but I mentioned this because in the same way, Breakthrough, Breakpoint, and Fates Collide all connect with one another, but tell different parts of the story through connecting cards. First, I'll give you a quick recap of the story from the set info, since X and Y era was a while ago. After that, I'll highlight specific cards that showcase the themes and how they connect across different sets, and finally I'll wrap things up with my own interpretation of the story that these cards tell. In Pokemon Breakthrough, he introduces Break Pokemon, and the idea that there are two worlds, one that's technological and one that's more natural, and Mewtwo X and Y being the central figure in the set. In Pokemon Breakpoint, it mentions a growing rift between the two worlds. First discovered by shiny Mega Gyarados, and as the rift tears through the sky, more Pokemon are drawn into the struggle. Finally, in Fates Collide, it talks about Mega Alakazam that tries to unify these two worlds. As you can see from the set info, it always mentions about these two worlds, but what is it referring to? Let's start with these 3 cards that tie the set together. Each of these sets feature a flipped stadium, a stadium with 2 sides, where the effect changes depending on its orientation. In Pokemon Breakthrough, the card is called Parallel City. In Breakpoint, it's called Reverse Valley, and in Fates Collide, it's Chaos Tower. These aren't just gameplay mechanics, they also reflect the themes and the stories of their set. Parallel City is a reference to the two worlds, and look at the chest spin and Axew cards, showing them in two different timelines where one is technological and the other is more natural. Let's take a closer look at what's actually happening from a bird's eye view. Take Staraptor and Braviary cards for example. They seem normal and they're shot from the same angle. But then you look at the Mandibuzz and Noctowl cards. You can see a Chaos Tower in the background and see the trees branching out. Something unusual is going on. Take Aerodactyl. Its flavor text says it flies in the ancient sky, but it's clearly in the modern city. So how did it end up here? It might be tied to the rifts opening up in the sky for the card arts in Sigilyph and Rattata, and you can see the rift shows a parallel world and its reverse, hinting at the other stadium card. There's even a Raticate card that glows and gains the ability to break. Pokemon like Chestnut and Raichu are also able to break, and it's usually the final evolution. But there are Pokemon like Lucario and Garchomp that feeling the effects of the rift. Chikorita and Fennekin are the perfect cards to explain the story of the set. They come from two completely different regions, Chikorita from Johto and Fennekin from Kalos, so under normal circumstances, their paths would never cross, but because of the rift, their fates collide in a way that wouldn't normally occur. So what about the Chaos Tower? This stadium represents how the world has become unstable. It flips the rules of the battle, just like it flips the rules of the world. The struggle refers to how Pokemon are forced to adapt to a sudden change in their environment and to the events they could not prepare for. Take Burmy and Wormadam. They're normally found in the forest, but here you can see Burmy stuck in the street lights and Wormadam at a railroad crossing or a scrapyard. Omastar's home even has a traffic light in it. Seal is supposed to be standing on ice, not a research facility, and Swellows and Shelter shouldn't be together in a desert. The rift shows how it's pulling Pokemon out of their natural habitats. Chaos Tower is the perfect symbol for this idea, a world turned upside down where nothing is stable. The main legendary of the set is Mewtwo, one of the few Pokemon alongside Charizard and the newly revealed Raichu that has both X and Y forms. Supposedly it's the clash between these two forms that created the rift in the first place. You can actually see this reflected in the card art. There are two different Mewtwo cards, each featuring cameos of other Pokemon. One shows Chestnut and Magnezone, and this represents the two worlds again, one of nature and technology, while the other features Zoroark, Haxorus, and Meloetta, which all these Pokemon are from the Black and White era or the Unova region, representing two sides. We also have Mega Alakazam, another Psychic-type Pokemon. Alakazam represents an attempt to unify the two worlds. There is a Lucario card where Alakazam's image is faintly seen in the background, almost as if it's watching over the events. These are the main cards that I feel tell the story and the events of the set. And now I want to make some connections and share my interpretation of some of the lore. When Pokemon break, they're usually shown by a glow or lightning. This makes sense when you connect it to Reverse Valley, a stadium card full of lightning. This transformation reminds me of the Hoenn region, which is an exclusive region in the TCG, where scientists were using electromagnetic waves in order to find Mew. But instead, the Pokemon in the area started getting affected and their types began to alter, and this was known as Delta Species. I believe all the stadium cards represents a duality, or is that there's always a flip side, and it's only brought out when there's chaos. And it makes sense if you consider entropy, which is the idea that the world prefers chaos or disorder. Pokemon normally grow stronger by evolving with the help of their trainers into permanent forms. In the X and Y era, Mega Evolution was introduced, a powerful but temporary transformation. Break feels like another temporary form, but unlike Mega Evolution, it happens independently, almost like the Rogue Megas hinted in the Legend ZA game. What I mean by duality is that these cards always show two sides. For example, Froakie and Frogadier, you see two perspectives, kind of like student and teacher. Zora and Rubat show two sides of a story, where things don't start out great, but in the end it's alright. Chespin and Snorlax, or even Minccino selling spoons at the Grumpig concert, show how their fates collide in unexpected ways. Slowpoke and Shelter are together in one card, but when Shelter bites Slowpoke's tail, it becomes Slowbro. To me, all these are examples that show whenever there's an X, there's always a Y. Everything has a counterpart, the two worlds, the multiple forms, the two sides, the two timelines. These are all things that connect Pokemon together, and there's a constant battle to maintain order in the chaos in the lives of Pokemon. Of course, this is just my interpretation of the story. Let me know in the comments what you think these cards represent. While this set doesn't have a clear-cut narrative, I really appreciate it when the Pokemon Company weaves stories into their cards. It gives value to bulk cards beyond their monetary value. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing. It really helps the channel grow a lot. And if you have any feedback or video suggestions, I'd love to hear from you in the comments, and hopefully I'll see you in another video.